Hey, it's me, it's CGB, and today we are doing my top 10 cards for the new set that I will get the name right of this time, Phyrexia, All Will Be One. Now, I definitely shouldn't be making a top 10 list because a lot of these cards I just read for the first time a few minutes ago. As many of you know, I've been on vacation most of this month and been a little checked out, just kind of checked out on Magic, so I'm just starting to read and get hyped for these new cards, but I'm going to be playing them in the early access event on Wednesday, or Thursday. It's Thursday something. I gotta drive home from the vacation house and from Florida all the way back to Michigan, and then I'm going to be getting ready for that stream. But I should be coming to you live with the early access event sponsored by Wizards of the Coast for Phyrexia. All Will Be One, and I may as well cover the top 10 cards of the set. Like I said, I really shouldn't, because I've just barely gotten to know these cards, and some of them are definitely shots in the dark, but I know that, honestly, you guys love these. You love top 10 lists. You love top 10 for cards that haven't been out or played before, because then you can come back and laugh at me when I put Cosmina as my #1 card in Kaldheim and leave Alrund's Epiphany off the list. You guys love that stuff. Never forget what an idiot I can be. So let's dive right into it. My honorable mentions are the fast lands, Darkslick Shores being the example, but these are friendly colored, so like blue and white, blue and black. Are there other ones that like make green mana and red mana? Who cares? But these lands enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. So if it's your first, second, or third land, it's untapped. This is going to continue to make mana very, very good and reduce the amount of pain lands you have to play in your deck. Standard best of 1, by the way, is the primary focus of this particular review, with a little extra words about standard best of 3 and historic brawl, in case you were wondering. And in standard best of 1, this means you get to run less of the pain lands, which makes mono red a little worse and makes decks better against mono red. And these will be very useful, but putting lands on your list is lame, so that's why they're in the honorable mention spot. My number 10 is a real, probably my favorite card in the set, and a card that I honestly hope gets played somewhere, and that's Atraxa Grand Unifier. This is a flying vigilance, death touch, lifelink, 7/7 legendary Phyrexian angel for the low cost of 7 mana in 4 different colors that are not red. And when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 of your library. For each card type, you may put that card into your hand. You may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So a lot of Niv Mizzet Reborn type vibes. You play this and you reveal a land and a creature and an enchantment and an artifact and a planeswalker because you are a god gamer. And you put all those in your hand and you feel great about it. This is an enters the battlefield effect. So if you reanimate this or cheat this into play or copy it somehow, clone it, blink it, you get the effect again, which is totally sweet. Oh, by the way, it says down here battle is a card type. So there's a lot of speculation over what the heck that means. Who knows? But I hope that this finds a home. In most cases, I would say reanimating cards like Titan of Industry, is right up there. But we've already got that deck that gets back 1 with the multiverse using like Invoke Justice. This card seems like an excellent include in that deck. Very exciting card. Can't wait to play it in Commander and Historic Brawl as well. Atraxa is awesome. Just had to get it in there on the number 10. It may never actually hit standard very well, but I love it. I just love it. The Filigree Silex is the number 9 card. This is a 2-mana legendary artifact, taps for an oil counter. Taps it, says sacrifice and destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of oil counters. Think Ratchet Bomb, but legendary. Then there's one more ability to show power creep, to show Ratchet Bomb what power creep is. And that's to remove 10 oil counters from among permanents you control, and then sacrifice this, and it does 10 damage to any target. And it's 10 oil counters from permanents you control. So if you have more oil counters and an oil counter theme, this gets very good. Proliferate is a heavy theme of the set, so you can cheat this along and blow up bigger things. But in general, Ratchet Bomb was a player for sure. And it also works very well against tokens, because you can play it for 2 mana, then sacrifice it with no oil counters and blow up all of your opponent's tokens, including their little Fable the Mirror Breaker dork and maybe some treasures. I don't know. So I think that this will see play in a number of decks. It's for example, a Solution to Reckoner Bankbuster in mono black that it didn't have before that you could play. It's more likely to be a sideboard card. It slots in at number 9. Number 8 is Glissa, the Sunslayer. This is 1 and a black and a green for a Phyrexian zombie elf. First strike death touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, choose 1. You draw a card and lose a life. You destroy target enchantment or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. So, first strike death touch is really hard to block. Chump blocking it because anything that's blocking it is going to die unless it's indestructible. Therefore, hitting the opponent shouldn't be too hard, and this card puts the opponent in the squeeze as far as tough choices. Blowing up their enchantments is good for you, drawing cards is great for you, removing 3 counters from a permanent could kill their planeswalker, so yeah, Glissa seems really cool. It also says 3 counters from target permanent, so there's like weird stuff you can do, like take counters off your own blast zone. There might be other interactions that I haven't thought of that maybe you have. Post them in the comments. Any of the things I'm not quite getting right here, but I think this card is really cool. I don't like that it gives opponents choices, and it is still 3 mana 3/3, but still a good blocker if you're on the defense. Like attacking into this is a disaster for the opponent, so I think this card might see some play. Then we've got another legend. By the way, a lot of legendary cards on the list. The next card is Skrell, the Defector Mite. This is a white for a 1/1 legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Mite with Toxic 1. And the Defector Mite can't block. But for a Phyrexian white, you can tap it to choose a color, and another creature gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from the color until end of turn, and it can't be blocked by creatures of the color. So it's kind of a cool little protection thingy. It's legendary. It's a 1-drop, so the price is right. It's an artifact, and there's a lot of artifact matters things, and it can defend your other creatures from removal spells and things of that nature. In fact, paying 2 life and tapping it is a pretty easy thing to hold up. Being unable to block, I don't know if that's really going to matter too much. Obviously, your 1/1 getting into blocking isn't particularly great. So I'm excited to see what this card does. It's also another 1-mana legendary card that's not a total embarrassment to have in your decks. So when you think of the legendary matters decks that run a lot of Plazas of Harmony, maybe with Rafine and things like that, this card will fit right in there. This card protecting Rafine sounds really, really good. So yeah, I like this card. I think it's going to show up in several places. Legendary is going to hold it back a little, probably craft 1 or 2. My next card, and we are now entering Planeswalker Corner, by the way. Lots of Planeswalkers in the set. Sneaky Planeswalker set. The last time they made this many Planeswalkers was in War of the Spark. Planeswalkers got busted because they're hard cards to evaluate, and some just slip through the cracks. Anyway, F's in the chat for Jace, the Perfected Mind. He's completed 2 in a blue and a Phyrexian blue for 5 with completed, and for a +1 up to until your next turn, 1 creature gets -3/-0. Kind of defends itself. Kinda. -2, target player mills 3. Then if a graveyard has 20 or more cards, you draw 3. Otherwise, you draw a card. For the most part, read that as -2, mill 3, and draw a card. Not bad, especially for like a 3-mana planeswalker that this can be. And then -X is target player mills 3 times X cards. What I actually think this card is being underrated, and I think it's because it actually is a win con. I think that milling the opponent out in this insanely stupidly grindy meta is a very legitimate strategy in those long games. So if you play Jace like halfway through the game and just -5 it right away and mill the opponent 15, I think you can win the game that way. Like two cracks from Jace will do that job. Otherwise, you can get a draw 3, which is really sick, and you can fill graveyards to use with Corpse Appraiser and things of that nature. There's a lot of graveyard-ish strategies. So I think Jace the Perfected Mind is going to show up in places. I'm not convinced it's a 4 of, but I could see a deck trying 3 or 2. It's easy to splash into a 3-color deck. Yeah, I think this card is very playable. The next card is Nissa, Ascended Animist. 3 green, Phyrexian green, mythic 7 loyalty. Completed. +1, create an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token where X is Nissa's loyalty. Rawr. -1, destroy an artifact or enchantment, and -7 until end of turn. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. That -7, by the way, if you cast this for 7 mana without, you know, using the completed cost, you can just do that right away. You have all forests, it's +7/+7 to your team with trample. It's Nissa Crater Hoof. It is definitely a win con. The -1 to destroy an artifact or enchantment. There's plenty of them running around. You can see a lot of things where you'd want to blow something up, but the +1 can make rather large creatures. I love the double Phyrexian completed cost because you don't know where you're going to play this in the curve, 5, 6, or 7, but it can fill any of those spots, and the amount of loyalty it has is very relevant. I think that Nissa will see some play as long as green has enough support, and I'm not positive green has enough support yet, but green is a popular color. They can't keep it down forever. This might not see play this year and then take off like next year with a few more quality green printings in future sets. Kaya the Intangible Slayer. This is my number 4. And it's a weird number 4 because I think it's only like a one of in like an Esper control deck or a black-white control deck. Like it's a really niche card. Anyway, it's 3 white, white, black, black, 7 total mana for a hexproof 6 loyalty that has a +2 that each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. It's so hard to kill. It goes straight up to 8 loyalty and it's hexproof. And you're draining, so you're gaining life so they can't race your face either. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Anyway, 0 is the draw 2 cards. Then each opponent may scry 1. Just ignore the scry 1. Who cares? You're drawing 2 cards. Like a scry is worth a third of the card. You drew 2. People are like, oh my god, how does it have a downside? It's barely there. -3, exile target creature or enchantment. If it wasn't an aura, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 white spirit creature with flying, in addition to other types. So you take out their best creature or enchantment and you get your own version of it. It's only a 1/1 white spirit, but it has the abilities. And if it's an enchantment, of course the abilities are what matters. I just think that this card is a wonderful kind of win con, and maybe it is like a sideboard option, and maybe it's only a one of in a very niche set of decks, but I still think it belongs on the list. Number 3 is Lukka, Bound to Ruin. This is 2 in a red and a completed Gruul and a green, a Phyrexian Gruul, I guess, and a green. 5 loyalty mythic Lukka Planeswalker with completed. +1, add red-green. Red and green. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. -1, create a 3/3 green Phyrexian Beast creature token with Toxic 1. And -4, X damage divided as you choose among any number of creatures and or planeswalkers, where X is the greatest power among creatures controlled as you activate the ability. A creature-centric planeswalker is always a little tricky to evaluate because, of course, it's all about what creatures got on the board before, during, and after this, but I think there are some really good ones in this set. There's the Contaminated 3 mana 4/4 with Proliferate. By the way, all the Proliferate stuff with planeswalkers is going to be an intentionally strong strategy that you're going to see plenty of people trying to make work. So just remember that there's a lot of Proliferate in this set to make the planeswalkers even better. That's why many of them don't have ultimates, because you would ultimate them right away. Anyhow, I love the +1 for the mana, and that doesn't seem particularly exciting, but with Lukka, you can play this on turn 4. You can plus it for red and green and drop out like a blocker, or you can minus it to make a blocker. Next turn plus, and you are casting Titan of Industry. So if you play this, like you play like a 2-mana mana dork, like the Loam Shaman or whatever its name is, the elf that taps for a mana, then turn 3 you play this, then turn 4 you're already dropping Titan. And that's without playing bad cards. I think that this card is a sneaky way to get to those big expensive costs. And there's some other really cool stuff. There's a Toxic Dinosaur in this set that costs 7. You know, you could play Atraxa with this in theory, although you don't really need the red mana, just play a 5-color deck. Easy. So, I mean, I just think that Lukka is sneaky good, and I hope to see it played in plenty of creature decks. My number 2 card is Vraska. Rip, another completed one. Betrayal's Sting. 4 and a black and a Phyrexian black with completed. It's a 6 loyalty planeswalker. 0 is draw a card and you lose 1 life. Proliferate. -2 is target creature becomes a treasure artifact and loses all other types and abilities. And -9 is if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. The -9 is a scary, potentially lethal thing, because if you -9 them, then a 0 from this Vraska or a future Vraska means they're dead because they go up to 10 poison. But it's important to note that if they get a poison counter some other way, like the millions of ways in the set, like 41 cards I think have toxic in this set or something crazy, the 0 can just keep proliferating that counter until they die. So just picture your deck full of answers and removal and things like that, and then you just keep hitting them with the 0, the 0, the 0, they die. That's a really fun way to win with an Infect Planeswalker deck, which I think a lot of people really do want to see coming out of this set. So I'm optimistic that Vraska will make impacts. It's kind of cool that Black has a sweet curve of Planeswalkers, like really good Planeswalkers. We lost Lulf, but now Vraska is here to sit in at 5 mana and start drawing cards right away. And it can also proliferate onto your Sorin and your Liliana and things of that nature, your double Ob Nixilis. I think this card is going to be very sweet. And my number 1 card in the set is a long shot. And people have already, like, I tweeted and posted on the channel about this card on my main channel's, like, community page. People are really divided on this card. Let me read you Mindsplice Apparatus. A 3 and a blue artifact rare flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on the apparatus. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mindsplice Apparatus. Why do I think this card is absurdly good? Now this, notably, I'm taking a big chance on this one. I am not positive I've got this, but let me give it a shot. The opponent, on turn 4, they tap some mana, they slam some card that they think is really cool. They say, go, you Mindsplice Apparatus. You flash it in. Untap. On your upkeep, you put an oil counter on this. Now, all your instants and sorceries cost 1 less. There are instants and sorceries in this deck that are like, you know, 1 in a blue, draw a card, each opponent gets a poison counter. There is 1 in a blue, look at your top 3, pick 1, like Anticipate, and then Proliferate. There are multiple Proliferate cards, including my own, or actually my reveal card is a Toxic related card, not a Proliferate card, but there's a lot of Proliferate spells. So just picture, you play this, now your instants and sorceries cost 1 less. You cast for 1 mana the card that like looks at your top 3, picks a card and proliferates. Now you put a second counter on this. Now your spells cost 2 less. Now you cast that draw 2 for 1 mana. You draw 2 cards. Now you tap 1 more mana and you cast like another proliferate effect. This goes up to 3. I don't think it's a long shot to be taking extra turns with Alchemist Gambit and maybe copying it with something like Twinferno. And then your opponent just never plays another card. So this is definitely a long shot, but just keep in mind that if we are giving them poison counters and then proliferating, we can keep making our spells as cheap as we need to be and be winning the game at the same time. I think that there is combo potential here that the opponent just doesn't get to play Magic anymore if you untap with this. Though the pieces might not all be there, but if they are, this will go down in history as a really good called shot because a lot of people think this card sucks. And if they aren't, I will look like an idiot for all time. And isn't that why you watch these videos? To listen to me talk and tell me that I was an idiot like 6 months ago when I didn't think Kasika's Chariot belonged in the top 10. You know, stuff like that, right? So, yeah, you get your cake, have your cake and eat it too. It's the viewer experience. Anyway, that's going to do it for my top 10 cards of Phyrexia. All will be one. Let me know what you think. Very Planeswalker heavy. I love these Planeswalkers, and then there are a lot of, I mean, it's all legendary except for the apparatus, to be honest. Which is kind of incredible, but I think that putting legendary on cards is a pretty good check for if they're too powerful. Curious to see what this set will do to standard. I'm not absolutely sure it's going to provide all the tools to change it a lot, but it will definitely at least add some different flavor. If I can play a Planeswalker deck that proliferates a lot, that should be very exciting. I am going to pack all of this up now. It's been really fun making this content on this vacation from my vacation house down in Florida. I'm going to pack this up. I leave in the morning. I'm going to be on the road for 2.5, 3 days. I'm going to get back on Wednesday when I have to immediately go to the store and build decks for my Commander show, which will be returning, I think, at the end of the week. And then the next day is the early access event. So I'll be, you know, suiting up and probably playing for like 8-10 hours because I have to make about 5 or 6 videos just during the early access event alone. And I'm not sure how much stream time I'll put in there, but I'll figure it out. Also not sure if it will be Twitch or YouTube, but I'll figure it out. Just stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to the channels, follow me on Twitter, look for updates, join the Discord, things like that in nature. And thank you for the support on this other channel. We've already hit a lot of milestones. Anyway, I'm rambling now. See you later. You're cool.